You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
You're listening to the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada Edition, your source for all IIHF Hockey Canada-related news, discussions, and analysis of tournaments like the Winter Olympics, World Championships, World Cup, and World Juniors from right here in the Niagara region. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo and Kyle Kitt.
Welcome back, Hockey Canada fans, to another edition of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada Edition, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your December 14th, 2020 edition, your source of North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. Find us on social media for updates, giveaways, and sponsorship promo codes each month by following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and liking us on Facebook by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. You can listen to us on our main platform, which is Spreaker.com, and the free Spreaker app as well. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Deezer by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network, of course. And lastly, our beautiful user-friendly website, armchairgmsports.com, for all things regarding our network, including articles, podcast episodes, sponsors, and contributors. Everything's on there for you guys. It's a glorious website. Please go and check that out, and please give us a like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast right now. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the hockey portion of the network, Cappy. Follow me on Twitter, @Caputs13 of the Canadian Zed. And I'm always very pleased to be joined on the hockey portion of the network by my co-host and co-owner of the Armchair GMs. He is also Hockey Canada fanatic. He is Just Kyle.
How's it going, eh?
At Just Kyle 51. Kyle, we're back on December 14th. We're just around the corner from Christmas. And here in Canada, that means we are right around the corner from the World Juniors, which is synonymous with the Christmas holidays with us Canadians.
Yeah, that's the bubble World Juniors this year. It's a little bit different here in, nowadays. But, yeah, Christmas, World Juniors go hand in hand every single year, especially here in Canada. And it's such a big deal up here. It's just a shame because it actually is in Canada. Like it falls under the 1 year where it's in Canada, and we're getting bubble life World Juniors where there's not going to be any crowd, which is going to suck because I think like when the World Juniors come to Canada, the crowd is just absolutely like nutcases when wherever they go in Canada when they host the tournament, and it's a shame that there won't be any. It's still really cool that they're still going to make an attempt next year when it goes back to Alberta, and hopefully by then we're going to be allowed fans in the stands. We'll see what happens. Again, you never know with this virus, you never know with how the pandemic's going to roll out. We just got to sit here and pray. But I'm excited though. Regardless of all that, I'm excited for some World Junior hockey. Pumped.
And it's going to be different this year. I think there's going to be a lot more eyes on it this year. Like there obviously is a lot of eyes on it around the hockey universe because it is best on best of the youngest prospects coming into the NHL. But I think this year, because of the fact that we haven't really had any hockey in a while, and we're getting our first glimpse of a real sense of hockey in the last couple of months here with what we had in the bubble life with the return of the NHL. And just how that ended. And this will be like the first start of the new hockey season, which the NHL is obviously targeting an early January start. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But this is really like the kickstart of the new hockey season, which we've been waiting for. We usually get around September, October area. We're getting the start of junior hockey. We're getting the start of the NHL. And this year obviously has been a lot different for that because of the pandemic. So really the World Juniors is the kickstart for the 2021 hockey season at this point.
It's so weird because usually when the NHL season starts, there's no hockey beforehand that's following suit. Like it's usually the NFL gets underway and, the NBA is starting to do their preseasons. There's not really much hockey going into the regular hockey schedules. This is kind of like the first like live action hockey that we're going to get before, for a new season technically. And it falls under the World Juniors. So it's definitely new to everybody for sure, and it's going to be an interesting experience. But yeah, you're right. There's going to be a lot more eyes on it because people are itching just for some sort of like live competitive hockey, and what better way to watch that than the World Juniors? So I think it's going to be great. There's going to be a lot more eyes, and it's going to be awesome to see what they incorporate with this. I don't know if they're going to do like the whole, like, is there going to be like are they going to keep showing the Jumbotron like at certain points of the game and showing like people at home? You know what I mean? Like the NBA would do or the NHL would do.
Yeah, like
there's
Zoom
loads
calls with fans.
Yeah.
Little screens and that. But if you guys obviously read the title of this video, we're going to be talking about Canada's final roster.
Ooh, I didn't know I was on camera. Hang on, let me change.
No, well, on video, if you're listening on YouTube and everywhere else on audio platform, you see the picture of the main picture of this video or this podcast is going to be Hockey Canada's final roster. So we're obviously going to talk about that on today's show. We're also going to discuss the cuts that were made, as well as the players deemed unfit, and the COVID situation, which shut down Hockey Canada for 14 days, which seemed like a blessing at this point for them because of the fact that a lot of other teams right now are going through that. So I guess for Canada to be able to get that over and done with early, I guess that kind of worked out for them. But that's kind of what we're going to talk about on today's show. But with that said, Kyle, let's jump into the first topic here, and that is the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic, the bubble. What's going to happen? We know how it's affected every other sport and even hockey in general. Obviously, us covering the Niagara Ice Dogs of the OHL, that has not started yet. So, unfortunately, we haven't seen any junior hockey. This will be the first real glimpse of best-on-best junior hockey that we'll be able to see. And, unfortunately, Hockey Canada back on November 26th was shut down for 14 days mandatory because of some positive COVID tests. So, what did you think of that? And, you know, I mean, like I just mentioned, it was early enough where I think Canada is a little bit lucky in that sense, where other teams that have had positive tests are now shutting down their camps right before the tournament's about to start. But Canada was obviously behind the eight ball at the beginning, but now their camp is obviously back up and running. But just, unfortunate situation, which I think was bound to happen with players coming from all over the world and coming into this bubble. I think we saw that with most other sports as well. Just the start of this thing can be pretty challenging with, the players. We don't know what they've been doing up until they get to the bubble. So it's pretty hard to predict in that sense.
Yeah, it's just bad luck. Like, nothing really much else to say. It's bad luck. There was a chance that it could happen, and it happened. You're bringing in a bunch of, between the ages of 16 to 18, possibly 19-year-old players into a bubble, and they all got tested at first. So the fact that it happened that early means that they brought it into the bubble. It wasn't contracted while in the bubble. So, that kind of looked a little good, if that makes any sense. So they tracked it right away. They put everybody in quarantine, which, in the end, too, that also sucks because you just started camp, and now you have to, not skate for 14 days and not be able to practice with everyone for 14 days. So that kind of takes a lot of chemistry building out of the short camp you have until the actual World Juniors itself. So, on that end of it does suck, but I think I can see it as a positive thing that they caught it so early and that it didn't happen while in the bubble, like a player didn't go out and maybe not listen to curfew rules and contracted it from being in the public and then coming back in the bubble and bringing it into the bubble. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think that for them to catch it that early, it definitely was brought in. So I think they did a good job with the quarantining, and it's a chance that any sport is going to take, really, when having live having sports on right now. There's no way to really control it unless you do something like what the NHL did with the bubble. But even then, you can't do that all the time. It's not good mental wise to do something like that all the time, and not really feasible. So,
and it's expensive.
Yeah. So it's not. It's a chance that all sports are taking, even the ones that are going on now, that it's something like that could happen, and they're going to have to do their best to control it. And I think they did their best to control it. And now, it's unfortunate the other teams are going through this, but again, I think it's not these kids contracting it in the bubble. It's what's being brought into the bubble. You think you're getting travel from all these countries that are coming also from other countries. So, you've seen on the news, they don't really there's a lot of these countries who take the pandemic seriously. And then there's also other countries that have an extraordinary rise in cases from these countries, and you're bringing in these players from those countries. So there's that chance as well. So, this was inevitable, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And I think Hockey Canada did a good job of it once they figured it out. They basically put everybody into lockdown for 14 days. All staff and players and activities were all suspended for 14 days. As of now, the camp has obviously reopened, and as of now, they've got it under control and are back up and ramping up for the tournament. So in that sense, I think Hockey Canada did what they could. They shut down. They took the protocols seriously, and now they're hopefully up and running for the start of the tournament, where other teams might be behind the 8 ball because they can't, practice and get ready for maybe even some of these exhibition games. We'll have to see how that progresses through the next week or so up till we get the start of the tournament in 12 days, Kyle. 12 days this tournament starts.
I'm curious to see how they're going to do it. I'd imagine there's going to be piped in crowd noise just to create that atmosphere for the television viewers, obviously. And I'm also curious to see how, we've seen how NHL players take the bubble life and play, right? As the games go on and as time goes on while you're in the bubble. I'm curious to see how these kids take the bubble life and how they adjust to it and how it adjusts and it affects their play. I think that's going to be a big thing to watch out for as well.
Mm-hmm. So with that said, guys, we got a little bit more to talk about as far as the players deemed unfit that were sent home. Kind of interesting there, as well as the final roster cuts, which we're going to get into after our first commercial break. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving traditional-style Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and their famous chicken wings. Winners of the Reader's Choice Diamond Award 4 years running from Niagara this week for Best Pizza and Wings in Niagara Falls. Home of the best tray and wing combo in town for the price and quality. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery at 905-374 4400. Make sure to like them on Facebook and view their website for their menu at carminespizzeria.ca. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Way too good. As we all adjust to this new world that we're living in today, masks are now mandatory, and Niagara's own Custom PPE is Canada's leading face mask provider. Visit them online at customppe.ca and choose between several mask options with different colors and sizes. Add your organization, company, or team logo so you make your face masks unique. Available to purchase online 24/7 at customppe.ca and shipped within 1 week. They have the best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, and no order is too big or too small. Also offering custom floor stickers as well as face and counter shields for your business or workplace. Visit customppe.ca and use the code ARMCHAIR at checkout for 20% off your custom or blank face mask today. Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Attention job seekers, if you are currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, directly across from the Camisos Plaza. Their free services include resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and all their services are currently provided by appointment only. So give them a call at 905-358-0021 or visit their website at ehc.on.ca, the Niagara Employment Help Center. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Welcome back to the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Cappy and Kyle back with you here. And Kyle, I had to let that song run for our viewers, get them fired up for the World Juniors.
I was literally sitting here going like, well, how long are you letting this thing play?
You got to let the IIHF song play, man. This song is iconic. This
might have confused some people. They were like, did I play something I shouldn't have been playing?
Oh, it's great. It's part of the show. part of the show, the double IHF song. It'll be with us throughout the tournament. Get you fired up for the segment. Anyways,
Christmas, that song, yeah, makes sense.
Yep, makes sense. I want that playing instead of all the terrible Christmas music that we get in the stores during this type of year. But
you don't like hearing Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You" every year play like 100,000 times?
No, the other thing I don't like is eggnog. I don't know about you, Kyle. We were discussing this during the commercial break. What do you think of the people that are on this eggnog train during the Christmas holidays?
Gross. Like, I'm sorry, if you like eggnog, I have trust issues with people that like eggnog. I don't see what the fascination with eggnog is, and people are, I love that eggnog, gotta mix it with the alcohol. No, absolutely not. Cut it out. No. Eggnog is the worst drink ever.
Going from the worst to the best, this segment today is brought to you by Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, home of the best pizza and wing combos in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Call today at 905-374-4400 or carminespizzeria.ca. Glorious new website. This month,
shout out to you, Carmi.
This month's promo code is Armchair Sausage for 10% off your entire order when you call. For call-ahead, pickup, or delivery, Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano. Unlike eggnog, it's way too good. So, with that said, Kyle, enough eggnog talk. Let's move into something here. We had, obviously, that we discussed in the first segment, Hockey Canada was shut down for 14 days due to some positive cases. And unfortunately, these cuts were made due to what happened with that. So there were 5 players that were, gotta love this statement, quote-unquote, deemed unfit to continue. So not because they're out of shape like Kyle and myself, but because of what's going on with COVID protocols. So defensemen Matthew Robertson, Mason Millman, and Damon Hunt, as well as forwards Ridley, Gregg, and Xavier Simoneau were all sent home before camp resumed. According those 5 players, obviously a very, very difficult position and situation. This is not a hockey decision. This is a health decision based on return-to-play protocols. They were unable to continue with camp. Feel horrible for these kids. That was the statement released by Hockey Canada and Senior Vice President of National Team Scott Salmon. So, Kyle, what do you think about obviously, it must be really disappointing for those 5 kids, but you know what, and what we're dealing with COVID in this year, we see in a lot of the major sports, players that are, they have to sit out or their seasons are just flat out finished because of what's going on, and players have to abide by the protocols, and if they are deemed that they are unfit in this scenario and they're going to kind of spread it around to the rest of the team and to the rest of other teams as well, you have to put safety first, and unfortunately they just can't participate in this tournament.
Yeah, it does suck. I mean, these players are going to go like they get the boot because of a global pandemic, which kind of sucks. Can't even talk. Kind of sucks because we don't know. Maybe some of these players being sent home could have made the team if it wasn't for something like that, like COVID-19. Like they're being sent home because obviously they were the ones that were that had contracted disease or had brought it in. Maybe they were asymptomatic, which kind of, I mean, it does suck. I mean, that's tough. That's also really tough for the people for Team Canada who have to make that decision, right? Because you could be sending home a guy that could, that you really wanted on your forward core or your D core, but because of health protocols, they can't, they can't continue, which is upsetting. And it's tough to see, but again, it's what we have to do. It's what we've gotten used to over this past horrible 2020 with the global pandemic, and again, it's the right move to do. Mm-hmm. So you got to look out for the other players on the team.
Unfortunately for these kids, maybe some of them will be able to be back in camp next year, and maybe that'll play a factor into them staying on the roster. Who knows? But as for now, Matthew Robertson, Mason Millman, Damon Hunt, Ridley Gregg, and Xavier Simoneau, unfortunately, were sent home due to obviously the protocols and the deemed unfit to continue with the COVID-19 shutdown. So, with that said, also came some more sour news in this segment that we're going to get to here, and that were the 7 players among the final cuts for Team Canada, and there's going to be something interesting that we'll talk about with one of these players. But first, let's go through the rest of the list here. The departures of goaltender Brett Broshu and Tristan Lennox, that means Dylan Garan, Taylor Gautier, and Devin Levy were the 3 goaltenders that were kept on the roster. There were 5 competing for 3 spots. And obviously with the 14-day shutdown, that was tough for these goaltenders to be able to showcase what they could do. So Broshu obviously was the star goaltender for the London Knights. What do you think of Canada kind of choosing the 3 goaltenders that they did? They went with 2 guys that are already drafted into the NHL and 1 guy in Taylor Gautier, the only player on Canada's roster that is yet to be drafted to the NHL.
That was interesting. I thought they would definitely go with who was it? The one goalie they sent back. Was he the London Knights goalie?
Broshu.
Yeah, and instead of Gautier, but I mean, there was some talk behind Gautier going into this, especially in camp, that he had a lot to prove. There was a lot of talk and a lot of backing behind him that he could make a strong case to possibly take the number 1 spot. So I think they chose well in keeping him. Dylan Garand is another awesome pick. I'm not too familiar with Devin Levy's game. I'm not too sure how he fits in, if he has a contending spot for at least the starting position, or if he's brought in as just an extra, just in case of injury.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Garand's going to be the starter at this point. That's what the all signs are indicating, but you never know once we get back in going again.
Right. I know it's tough. It almost seems like the last couple of years with the World Juniors that there's never a clear-cut starting goaltender. You know what I mean? Like, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm trying to date back at, like, I don't remember the last time there was a clear-cut number 1 goaltender.
Mm-hmm. We've seen guys start, and then a couple games in, they don't like what they see from him, and another guy goes in. It just seems like there hasn't been, that
I'm talking about the
goaltender
days of
from
like
start to finish.
Yeah, the days of like
Carey Price,
Byzantine, Price, Pogge,
Fleury,
Marc-Andre Fleury, like those days, like where you knew who the starting goalie was. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means like you have multiple goalies that could battle for the number 1 spot. Like you're bringing in possibly 2 number 1 goalies instead of 1.
And you had 5 guys competing.
Yeah. I guess you could look at it from both sides of the coin. So
Mm-hmm.
I like the choices. I'm with it.
Mm-hmm. The London Knights fans out there are not going to be happy with that, including Colin Ward, who I guess we should mention here. Colin Ward from the Own 60 podcast will be joining us for our World Junior coverage during the duration of the tournament, when Kyle or myself, due to scheduling, will not be able to get together for a show. He will be a guest co-host on our coverage for Team Canada and the World Juniors moving forward into the tournament and throughout the tournament as well. So we'll have to get his thoughts on Broshu when he does come on the show. But with that said, let's get on to the other final cuts here, Kyle. And there's some really strong opinions on both sides of the coin with one of these players here. First, Adam Beckman, Tyson Forster, Hendrik Lapierre, Cole Schwindt, and obviously the young 16-year-old phenom Shane Wright from the Kingston Frontenacs, who we had the pleasure of watching this year, covering the Ice Dogs, who have played Kingston many times this year. Obviously as a 15-year-old turned 16-year-old. We see it a few times in this tournament where young players come in as, underage players and do get to make the roster, or, when they're deemed exceptional status like this, it means that they're going to be a very special player moving forward. He's obviously a special player that's going to be very, very good, not only for Kingston moving forward, but projects to be the number 1 overall pick in not this NHL draft coming up, but the year after that. He's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in that NHL draft. So what are you thinking of how they handled the Shane Wright situation, and were you okay with them bringing him to camp and then cutting him? Do you think that the experience of just having him be in the camp was enough, or do you think that sending him home at this point kind of gives him a hit in his confidence, and maybe they should have kept him on as a reserve at this point, like we've seen a couple of the other underage exceptional players that we've seen throughout the years?
Well, out of the 5 names that you named, like Beckman, Forster, Lapierre, Schwindt, and Wright, besides Wright, like putting Wright aside, I was actually shocked that Forster and Lapierre didn't make the team. I actually had both of them like written in to make the team, so that was that must have been a tough cut, because both those kids are exceptional players. So and again, this goes into my next point here. Team Canada's roster is stacked this year. Like, from listening to a couple radio shows, they're projected to go it's weird that they're projected to go undefeated, which is incredible. That just shows you how, if you weren't aware of how deep this roster is for Team Canada, they're projected to go undefeated, and I don't remember the last time they were projected to go undefeated, like not lose a single game all the way through.
I think you need to bring two things up with that. One, they're in a weak group this year. They're lucky that they avoid USA, Russia, and Sweden. That is ridiculous that those three are in one group. And the other factor is that obviously with the COVID situation and the NHL not starting yet, there are players that more than likely would be playing on NHL rosters that we wouldn't maybe see in this tournament if the NHL was up and going. We almost saw Alexis Lafreniere, the first overall
yes and
pick.
No, though. Yes and no, because there have been players in other countries that have been kept aside already. And I bring up, obviously, Lafreniere, but he was the number 1 overall pick. But a guy like, and I'll bring him up, Nick Robertson for Team USA, Leafs said no. Like, you're staying with us. We're giving you the shot to make the team. So I'm a yes and no about that. I think that this team, I think it has a potential. And when they say undefeated, I mean, like, not just through the prelims. Like, when you get matched up against the powerful country, whether that be in the semifinal or final, they're projected to beat them, regardless of who it is. They're projected to beat them. You could have another country go undefeated as well, but they're projected to beat them. So I'm not disappointed that Shane Wright didn't make the team. I think this team is stacked enough that it would be a great benefit, obviously, and a huge benefit to have him, but I don't think they need him, to be honest. You look at the forward core, I think they're okay. They have an exceptional amount of talent spread out through they're going to have players playing on the third and fourth line that would play on their first line any day. Mm-hmm. So I honestly don't think they really need him in that sense that it's, they brought him into camp, they gave him a shot, they gave him that little bit of experience, and hey, you're projected to be the number 1 overall pick in 2 years from now. Next year, you're probably going to be a lock-in for this team 100%. And they'll probably build around him. But
do you think that we've seen players like McDavid make the camp, make the roster? Do you think that maybe
I can't compare Shane Wright to McDavid.
Well, I mean, he was the same type of scenario. He's got the same kind of hype around him as Connor McDavid at this point.
I don't know about that. I think we would have heard a lot more about Shane Wright through like TSN and Sportsnet if he had a McDavid following.
Well, I just don't understand why you bring the kid to camp to then cut him. I don't know. To me, I don't know if that does good or better or worse for him as far as his development. Yeah, he got to spend the time here with Hockey Canada. Yes, he'll be on this team probably the next year and the following year after that, like you mentioned. But I don't know. To me, I think bringing him in and then sending him home was definitely not the greatest scenario. You would have loved to see them keep him as like a spare or an extra forward at this point to kind of learn.
It could also be what you said as well, too, a little bit. I think I'm thinking about it now. Like, because the NHL is not going on, yeah, I guess some players are not going to be called to their NHL team because their NHL is not going on just yet. I mean, the NHL is going to take, for sure, their exceptional, their talent, their prospects that they consider exceptional to their training camp and hold them off. But you know what I mean? Like, it's tough because if the NHL was already going on, maybe half the players that we see on this list aren't here. Like, what Byfield, I'd imagine, would be with LA.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll get into the final roster in our last segment, but that's basically it for the cuts. Obviously, the 7 players that were cut in the final decision, and as well the 5 players that were deemed unfit. So 12 players in total will not be continuing with Hockey Canada at least this year. Hopefully, some of these guys that are not overagers will get to continue with their Hockey Canada World Junior career going into next year. I'm sure there will be a lot of motivated guys here. Shane Wright being one of them, and Brett Broshu, the goaltender for the London Knights. I'm sure those guys will definitely want to get back and running next year with a year under their belt of more experience and hopefully make the team going forward. But with that said, guys, we're going to take our last commercial break on the show today. We're going to come back and we're going to finally get into and discuss Canada's final roster, what it's going to look like for the 2021 World Junior Hockey Championship. So stay right here. We'll be right back on the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride in providing elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel great about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity, offering unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team. They connect with their customers to simplify the process to make their life easier and to make their homes beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road, Niagara Falls, or find out more at jnlflooring.com. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m., and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 905-358-3299 J&L Flooring.
The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill is located on the top of Clifton Hill and just a 5-minute walk from the majestic Niagara Falls. It is conveniently nestled in the heart of the tourist district. A family-owned and operated business, the Spicy Olive opened its doors in May of 2003 and has since been established as an authentic and unique Italian restaurant and bar. Its rustic ambiance and time-worn finishing provide a warm and inviting dining experience. Offering an array of delicious dishes, they specialize in authentic Italian cuisine, homemade sauces, fresh ingredients, and consistently providing a strong foundation on which they build their menu. As night falls, the Spicy Olive shifts to a lively lounge where drinks and live music come together to make a perfect evening. For more than 15 years, they have provided not only for their dedicated locals, but their customers from all over the world with authentic Italian food and great live entertainment. Open daily 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. for dinner and till 2 a.m. for drinks. Check out their new menu and book reservations on their website at Spicy Olive Bar and Grill, it's with an E at the end, .com, or call 905-371-2323 for reservations as well. The Spicy Olive Bar and Grill.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final segment of our Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Cappy and Kyle back with you here. And this final segment today is brought to you by J&L Flooring, a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. Simplified processes and making homes beautiful are their specialties. 905-358-3299 or jnlflooring.com to start today. Jack's a big Sabres fan, so I know he's going to be excited for me to talk about these couple of Sabres prospects that have made Hockey Canada's final roster, which we'll get into. But
I was going to say, just like Team Canada is going to wipe the floor with this World Juniors. Damn right.
Crickets for that joke. Regardless, Kyle, let's get into the final roster for Team Canada's World Juniors for the 2021 tournament. Let's start off here. I'll just name off the team and then we'll kind of discuss it briefly. We got Kirby Dach, Connor Zary, Dylan Holloway, Cole Perfetti, Jacob Pelletier, Alex Newhook, Ryan Suzuki, Connor McMichael, Peyton Krebs, Quentin Byfield, Dawson Mercer, Dylan Cousins, Phil Tomasino, Jack Quinn, Braden Schneider, Caden Kozak, Bowen Byram, Thomas Harley, Jamie Drysdale, Jordan Spence, Caden Gooley, there we go. My feed kind of froze there for a second. I wondered what the heck was going on. Justin Barron, Devin Levy, Taylor Gautier, and Dylan Garand as the goaltenders that we mentioned in the first segment. But, Kyle, before you start talking about the players themselves, like you mentioned a little bit in the last segment, what a star-studded roster. I'd say 90 to 95% of this team are all first-round NHL draft picks. Just an unbelievable roster that it looks on paper for Team Canada. We know that doesn't necessarily translate to a gold medal, but looking at it as a pre-tournament, it's got to be a good start.
Yeah, the OHL and WHL are represented heavily here. I counted about 8 OHL players and about 9 or 10 WHL players, and then a few QMJHL and mixed with NCAA. So it's very, very, very star-studded roster. Guys off the top of my head I think are going to make a big difference are obviously guys like Quentin Byfield, Dylan Cousins, Kirby Dach, Connor McMichael, who's really grown his game. Dawson Mercer, who is returning goal, trying to get a repeat with the gold medal Cole Perfetti has a lot to prove. Jack Quinn's got a lot to prove. Phil Tomasino is going to be a great addition. We know that firsthand. On the back end, guys like Justin Barron, Bowen Byram, Jamie Drysdale, Caden Gooley, Braden Schneider. These guys are going to be your heavy hitters and your big D core. So this team has the potential to for sure do a repeat. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. They have the biggest chance to do a repeat, and I think they can get it done. It's going to be very exciting to watch these kids play. It's a very, very star-studded roster, and I hope it transitions to their game. Like I'm pumped for this.
Mm-hmm. And 2 notes of mention from this roster, like we mentioned in the first segment, I believe. Taylor Gautier, the goaltender, is the only player on this roster that has not been drafted to the NHL. He will be draft eligible in the 2021 draft, and as well the only American-born player invited to camp, did make the roster. Thomas Harley from Jamesville, New York, is the American that makes the Team Canada roster. So gotta love that. We usually see it the other way with a lot of players' fathers playing in American markets during their NHL career, and we see them born in the United States, and sometimes they do play for the United States, but sometimes they go home and play for Canada where their parents or their fathers were born, and they make that decision for themselves. But for this year, Thomas Harley, the American born, does make the cut in the roster, but on the back end. But with that said, Kyle, obviously you mentioned some players to look out for. It's going to be, there's not really anybody that can fly under the radar in this tournament. They're all top-end NHL first-round picks for the most part. There's a couple of guys like the goaltenders and a couple other guys that were not first-round picks, but the majority are first-round picks. What do you think of, obviously, Andre Tournier, the head coach from the Ottawa 67s, who is the coach for Team Canada? Do you think that had something to play with Ottawa players making this roster? We obviously had Jack Quinn, the Buffalo Sabres first-round pick, that did end up making the cut as an Ottawa 67. Do you think that helped? Do you think that played a factor? Maybe it was just for his benefit, the fact that Quinn is familiar with Tournier and he knows what he can bring to this team?
Obviously, the familiarity is going to be a big factor there. That goes hand in hand with that. I don't think him playing on Ottawa makes that much of a difference, but I think because of the season that Jack Quinn had this past year with the Ottawa 67s does definitely play a factor into him making this team. This guy had the biggest goal scoring season of his career and really had a standout season with the Ottawa 67s before COVID shut it down, and he was looking to be probably finished the year as the top goal scorer in the league, so, or at least one of them. So I don't blame, even if it wasn't
Tournier
coaching, I still see Jack Quinn making this team 100%.
And it's not just a Tournier thing. We saw it last year with, obviously, the London Knights head coach, Dale Hunter, selecting a couple of London Knights, but that's just because of the familiarity. They know what they can bring to the team, and I don't really think that should play a factor or demean what obviously Jack Quinn making this roster means and him deserving to make this roster. Just obviously the familiarity factor was a benefit in that regard. But other than that, Kyle, we've gone through most of this roster here, but we can start to piece together a roster and a kind of a lineup. But again, like you mentioned, it's going to be a bunch of first line players having to play. There's only going to be a couple of guys that are going to make the top 6. The rest of these guys are going to have to learn to adjust to a bottom 6 role, which most of them are not accustomed to on their current junior teams or wherever they're playing going before this pandemic. So how do you think that's going to work? And we see it every year, especially with teams like Canada, Sweden, Russia, USA, where they have just these star-studded rosters, but they kind of have to have the players buy in, especially the ones that are going to be playing in those bottom 6 roles. And that's got to be tough when your ice time goes from 20 minutes a game down to maybe 5 or 10. So I think it's whatever team can kind of adjust to that the most is going to be able to be the most successful in this tournament. And hopefully Canada, for a second year in a row, is going to be able to, check their egos at the door, and kind of those bottom 6 players are going to have to learn that this is their spot for the tournament and this is what this team's going to be.
I can see them doing what they did last year. I remember last year them having not as big of a problem as they're going to have this year, but somewhat of a problem last year with a lot of players in their bottom 6 not getting enough playing time. There's a lot of movement up and down the roster. I can see them doing something like that, giving, the players that are performing play top 6 minutes. The players that are not really performing from the game before will get moved into the bottom 6. But I can see them doing what they did last year in that sense. And also, I remember last year even in the later games that they played all 4 lines almost equal. Like there was, the third and fourth line didn't play as much as the first and second, but they were getting a lot more minutes than people projected. And then they started doing the transition throughout the lines, which we saw helped them tremendously when our boy Akil Thomas scored the winning goal. So, I think you can see them doing something along those lines. I don't really know how this coaching style is going to work with Team Canada. It's always one of those things you have to watch and wait and see. But if they have to adjust, I'd imagine that they would. It's tough when you have so many players that you have, like, literally you look at their forward list and almost everybody should be in their top 6. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think because of that, they're going to go with that tactic of, they'll set their top 6 lineup for one game, and whoever's not performing in that top 6 in that game, they'll move them up and down in the lineup, whether it be during the game or, by next game, they're going to start moving and shuffling some players around. I think that's a benefit you have, especially when you have the World Juniors, when you have all these players who are not used to playing together. You can do something like that to find the right chemistry.
And obviously, like you mentioned, sometimes the chemistry, like we see in the NHL games, you can't have an entire team full of, quote unquote top line players or top 6 players. It just won't work. But when it comes to these best on best tournaments, those players have to buy in, and you have to have a bottom 6 at some point. So some of these players, again, just have to find that chemistry and find that opportunity, that sweet spot of where they're going to be successful. If that means they're going to be playing bottom 6, and like you mentioned, that might switch from game to game. But I think it's going to segue nicely into our last quick thought here before we wrap up the show today is those the exhibition games before the tournament starts, I think are going to become even more important than I think they've ever been in this tournament, Kyle. Canada plays Sweden on the 21st, and then they play Russia on the 23rd. So not only are those 2 really good teams that they might end up playing in a medal round and on their way to the gold medal in their way, but obviously those are going to be very interesting games to kind of see where the team's at, because a lot of these players haven't played any sort of games almost in 9 months. So do you think that these pre-tournament games are going to be even more important than I think we've ever seen before?
I think so. I think it's also going to help the coach garner what team he has in front of them, and whether or not he's going to have to make those adjustments come the next time they potentially could play them in the medal round. So I think they mean more. They're going to, again, I think we brought this up in the last show. They're going to mean a lot more this year because of there hasn't been any junior hockey in this matter since last March. So even by the end of February last year, or for this past year. So yeah, I'm going to go what we said the last show. And these tournament games 100% matter in this tournament.
Mm-hmm. These games against Russia and Sweden I guess we'll see if these pre-tournament games will lead to something later down the road with the medal rounds, but I guess that'll be determined. But a couple of those teams obviously have had some COVID issues, so we'll see if again maybe these games don't even happen on schedule because of positive cases and things like that. But hopefully we do get the tournament in this year, Kyle. Obviously there were a lot of people wondering if this tournament was on the fringe of even not taking place, but hopefully we are able to get it in safely and get it in for obviously all the fans out there that just crave for this every year, especially in the big hockey markets like Canada, Sweden, Russia, USA, and a couple others that are up and coming now. It's a great time, and it's a great thing to look forward to during the Christmas holidays, like we mentioned. So I really do hope that they are able to get this tournament in safely. And to this point, they've obviously had some bumps in the road, like every other sport that has returned this year. But I think all signs are pointing towards this tournament getting underway, and hopefully we get all these games played and we don't have any delays, and it will hopefully end up with the gold medal game in early January.
I know. I can't wait. I just can't wait for it to start, to be honest. Like, I think I'm more pumped for the prelim games more than I've ever been in this tournament, because I want to see what what it's going to be like, especially in these times where we are in this world right now. So I'm pumped. I cannot wait for this.
Can't wait to get the setup going in your house for obviously
break out that Canada flag.
Break out everything. We'll definitely be posting the pictures of that when we do get our stuff set up. But it's a great time for us Canadians and a lot of hockey fans out there. And again, with the year we've had, we need something like this to kind of get our minds off of other stuff, and especially during the holidays. So with that said, Kyle, anything else you want to mention before we wrap up the show today? Obviously, we're going to be continuing our coverage here going into the tournament, but I don't know if we're going to be doing another show before the tournament starts, or if obviously we're going to be doing coverage during the tournament. But as for now, this might be it until Christmas.
Yeah, I really have nothing else to add, but I'm excited to just get it going for this tournament, and excited to see how, again, my biggest look at is going to be how they adjust to the bubble life at that age. So I'm curious to see that, but also obviously it's hockey, it's Team Canada, it's World Juniors. Like, how can you not be excited for this?
Mm-hmm. And obviously for us, our coverage last year, hopefully we're able to give you even better coverage than we did last year, obviously with the name of the show, and it's having its own show now. Every part of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown has its own show now, so it just breaks it up a lot nicer for you guys. And with that said, again, we'll be stay tuned for more with the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition going into this tournament. We're really looking forward to getting you guys more coverage with this tournament, and we're going to be bringing you news and kind of recaps of the games throughout the tournament. So we're really excited for that. And with that said, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source of North American sports coverage by sports fans for sports fans delivered to you in the beautiful Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the Niagara Hockey Lowdown, Cappy. You can follow me on Twitter at Caputs13 with a Canadian Z. As well, you can follow my co-host Kyle at JustKyle51. If you want some biased Toronto Maple Leaf tweets as well, you can sugar that in with following his Twitter account.
Coming from the biased Buffalo Sabres fan tweets. There you go.
Never.
I'll add that in there. I'll a little sprinkle in there like Salt Bay.
Yeah, kind of like we're going to be discussing on our Niagara Hockey Lowdown Sabres edition later this week. Myself and Austin Broad will be talking about Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn being the two Sabres named to Team Canada. So stay tuned for that episode. But with that said, a big thank you to all of our great sponsors who help put us on Support the Network, keeping the show on the air. Make sure you're checking them out and telling them that the Armchair GM sent you. Very important. Support your local businesses during this time. And finally, to you viewers out there for tuning in and listening along for this episode, to you Hockey Canada fans. And again, this is indeed Niagara Hockey Lowdown Team Canada edition on the Armchair GM Sports Network by sports fans for sports fans. Merry Christmas. We'll see you guys after the Boxing Day game.